it's about kind of finally getting to the point whether it's being so fed up or finally having the guts or both to really say aloud what it is that I want to do and go do it. I actually had a Post-it that was on my computer monitor that just said, say what needs to be said. As a reminder to myself, they are paying me to say the thing that may be uncomfortable, but I'm thinking it. The same thing applied to me saying my truth to myself.
Hi, I'm Molly Whipperforth, and this is Her Intentional Reset, a podcast for women in midlife curious about whether the career they chose 20 years ago still fits. Hear from women who have made pivots big and small, about the practical realities, the trade-offs, and whether the change was worth it. Meet Joanna Ehresman, CEO, Momentum Growth Solutions. Joanna is a growth strategist and marketing executive who has built her career around helping organizations evolve with clarity and intention. After years in senior marketing leadership within the wealth management industry, she launched her own consultancy, partnering with founders and executive teams to refine positioning, strengthen marketing operations, and drive sustainable growth. Today, Joanna is bringing that strategic foundation into the interior design world, which has long been a passion of hers. As a growth and operations consultant for Fika Design Group, she works at the intersection of business strategy and creative vision, helping to thoughtfully grow the interior design studio from the inside out. Outside of work, she and her husband, Chris, love to have adventures with their 3 young sons. I'm excited for you to hear Joanna's story and hear how she's creating her pivot in real time. This is Her Intentional Reset. Hi, Joanna. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. So bring us back to your journey.
How did I get here?
Yes.
As few words as possible. So my background is in marketing. I started on the agency side of the world early in my career and then moved into being a corporate marketer in the wealth management space, which was fantastic. I did that for 13 years, grew within the company I was in and learned a lot. The full spectrum of marketing capabilities from the more touchy-feely public relations, branding, all the way down to operations and technology. So it was a great experience. But within that role, the company grew so rapidly in the time that I was there. We went from $2.5 billion in client assets that we were managing to almost $65 billion. We were just a Minnesota and Iowa-based organization when I started, and we were nationwide by the time I left.
Wow.
And so my role as the company grew and changed, so did the leadership in marketing and strategy. And so in 2023, my position was eliminated and I was laid off from that role at the wealth management firm. And I spent a little bit of time, and you and I have talked about this, Molly, right? Of just taking this pause after this unexpected career event happens to really just reflect. Well, first, just rest because it had been so intense and just really high stress. I mean, I was in the height of my responsibility there during the pandemic. We had our 3rd child. It was all the things. And so it took me a lot longer than I expected just to rest. After I did that, I actually decided that working full-time anywhere just wasn't the right fit for me. And so I launched my consulting practice. The role that seemed to be emerging at the time, or my role as a consultant, is termed a fractional chief marketing officer. So fractional is fancy for like consultant / part-time. And I did that for about 2 years. So I was a fractional chief marketing officer under my own consulting LLC. And that was wonderful in terms of just learning a lot about being in my own business. But what I found is staying in the same industry, I was falling into my same habits. I was getting into the grind and working a lot with private equity-backed firms, which has its pros and cons in terms of pace and intensity and expectations. And so during that time, I also co-hosted a podcast, which is a whole other story. But one of the podcast guests talked about, she was a career transition coach, and she talked about in career transitions, thinking of things as experiments. And I felt like she was speaking so clearly to me. And one thing that I've always wanted to do since I was very young is go into interior design. But I was just like, nope, I have to go down the practical path and it's business and da, 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 da. And so that led me to approaching Fika Design Group.
Can you talk a little bit about the work or reflection that helped you think through of what you wanted to do next?
Yeah, it was a combination of work I did on my own. First of all, I had a routine of a daily walk and I listened to all the podcasts, development and career transition and that sort of thing. But then I also ended up connecting with a coach. Her name is Abby Ziv, and she's wonderful, who I also found just through a fate might be a little too woo woo, but when I did start consulting, when I hit, I can't remember if it was like a 6-month milestone or something, I'm like, you know what? I really want to celebrate the fact that I did this and I'm launched. And so I wanted to treat myself to a weekend away on my own.
Yeah.
I love solo travel, which I find people are surprised sometimes. They're, why did you travel on your own? But you get it, right? Like kids, career, all the things. Like sometimes you just need some time.
Yes. It sounds wonderful.
Yeah. And I found this retreat that Abby happened to be hosting. It's a yoga/coaching retreat. I met Abby and we had a good coach client chemistry. And so I started coaching with her. And that was really helpful for me to, I guess, say the things out loud that I was afraid to say. Like, I want to go into interior design and I'm nowhere near that right now. And how do I get there? And even express some of the things I was feeling in my consulting work. I thought being my own boss would feel completely different than I'm in the corporate world. But here I find myself under similar stress. And how do I navigate this? And this isn't the energy that I wanted to bring to this business. And I think what became clear is I have a lot of tendency to do things that are like people pleasing and perfectionist. Yeah. And like I said, the A student vibes of course you do the practical thing and you get a job that has a good career outlook and pay prospects and all of those things, all the way back to high school, college, right? When you do those sorts of assessments and tests. And so what it helped me to do is step back and say, okay, getting out of my head, how do I get into my gut and just listen to what feels like a yes to me? And I actually ended up putting a Post-it on my computer monitor, because this applied even within my consulting work, that said, say what needs to be said, because I would find myself holding back. And that applied both as a consultant, like saying hard thing that the client needed to hear. That's what they're paying me for. But then also to myself or to my loved ones of saying, I really want to go outside of this industry and I want to try something new. And that's scary. And I don't know how I'm going to do it or what it's going to look like, but I would love your support. And so it was that kind of period of unlearning. There was some rest. And then there was, after I rested, my default was, okay, go back into what I used to do, just do it for myself. But that didn't feel right. So it was like continuing to monitor, wait, this isn't the North Star feeling that I wanted to have, being more relaxed, being excited, and being inspired in my work, and not beating myself up for it, not feeling bad that I didn't nail it in like my original consulting focus. Just be like, okay, well, now it's time to focus somewhere else and just keep trying. So it's a lot more of being willing to try new things, and maybe they'll work out and maybe they won't. But after you have gone through some of those hard paces, you realize like it'll be okay. And also nobody's paying any attention anyway. So who cares?
I love that. How did you know that you wanted to go into interior design?
This is an unhelpful answer. I kind of just always knew, but I was too scared to ever say it. Growing up, I spent a lot of time with my dad. My dad was a very handy kind of construction renovation type of person. And we would watch This Old House and New Yankee Workshop on public television. And I loved all of the home renovation space. It's always been something that I've appreciated and enjoyed doing myself, is really making spaces. I feel it's so important to your well-being and your family's well-being now that I'm a parent. It's just always been something that I've been so passionate about. But the more A student logical side of me is like, well, no, that's just not practical. You didn't go to college for that, so you can't go into that industry. Just enjoy doing it in your free time, and you are going to be in the wealth management industry forever. When I finally gave myself the permission to think about what could this look like and how do I actually explore this without blowing up my entire kind of career history and professional reputation, that's what led me to really, it just started with a job shadow, a week-long job shadow at Fika Design Group, and blossomed into more from there.
So let's dig a little bit deeper into that because I think this is so cool how you approached Fika. What did that look like?
Yeah.
What was your pitch to them?
Well, I originally reached out to a designer that helped. We remodeled our kitchen in 2019, and I
Okay.
reached out to her just to say, hey, I've long had an interest in the interior design business. Can I shadow you for a week? Her answer was no for her, but it was because she was winding down her business temporarily. She had some family things going on, but she said, hey, I actually can refer you to a woman I worked with many years ago who has now launched her own firm, and she's great. And
Okay.
thankfully, I was referred to Jennifer Severson, who is one of the
Hmm.
co-founders. Kelly Jurdy is the Fika Design Group. And Jennifer is, well, I don't totally understand what you're asking, but I trust Catherine who referred you. So sure, let's grab coffee. So
Okay.
we sat down for coffee, the three of us. I have to admit, the conversation wandered from my perspective a little bit. It went from me asking them my questions about how does the business operate and that sort of thing to when they were like, well, so what do you want? I was like, I'm not totally sure. Can I just hang out with you guys and see what things are like and
Okay.
see if I romanticize the idea of this career or if there's actually something here? So we set up a week. A couple months down the road, they found a week and they were very generous with their time where they kind of made it a more fun week where we had went to a client's home and then they had a client presentation and then we went to, a showroom. So I got to see some of the sexier things on that side of the business, which totally got me hooked and it made me
Okay.
want to get into that world.
So then how have you continued that partnership with them from that week-long job
Mhm.
shadow?
Well, in return for them letting me hang out with them, essentially, which created more work for them, quite honestly, I said,
Okay.
why don't I do some positioning work for you, some brand positioning and some content recommendations to basically pay you back and as a thank you. So then
Hmm.
I presented that to them and it just very naturally came to the conversation. They happen to be very open and direct people. And they're like, you know what? We really like you. And we actually see how you could add value here in parts of the business that aren't their favorite. It's stuff they were doing and doing just fine because their business had been successful, but
Yep.
they really wanted to get out more of the business operations and just focus on their zones of genius in design. And I happen to love all of the nerdy marketing and operations, the business side of things. So we ended up structuring a 3-month, basically pilot over a summer where I stepped into that role and really helped them out. And we just continued to have open dialogues about how much we both were finding that this worked on either
Hmm.
side. It now
Hmm.
has become my primary focus. I'm still under my consulting umbrella. I'm not an employee there, but the majority of my time is focused on helping their business grow. And the role that I'm in today is something that the co-founders of Fika and I created together from me basically experimenting my way into this role.
Well, I think that's such a great part of your story that you were using your skill sets to get into the space that you wanted to get into. And so, how long have you been there now?
I have been there 6 or 7 months.
Walk us through what your day to day looks within a given week.
Sure. It ranges quite a bit. So the responsibility for the marketing falls under me, and that's everything from more production. It's building relationships with builders, real estate agents, just helping to think strategically within the design team of what are we doing, who are the right clients to reapproach that we maybe worked with a few years ago, and it's now time to reengage and start to build that pipeline. But then from an operations standpoint, it's helping with a lot of the financials. They have a external bookkeeper, but just making sure our financials are reconciled and we're looking at how are we trending and creating forecasts and what's our business plan for the year? What are our top 3 priorities and the sub projects beneath them? So within a given week, I would say it's a lot of time doing those sorts of projects, which are more me putting things together, presenting to the team, getting buy-in and proceeding. If there's a big delivery to a client's home and they just need a second set of hands. It really varies, but it's a lot of the back office work of working in the systems and forecasting and creating marketing materials and content
Okay.
and that sort of thing. So I've had to learn a lot because it's me around the execution of certain things. It's really fun. And it's also good to get my hands in some of the details and figure out, hey, how do we automate this? And how do we make it less human focus, someone having to do it and have more systems do things?
You were mentioning to better understand some of the design component. What are you going to
Yes.
be doing this next year within Fika?
Yeah. Well, it was great because as we were working on 2026 business planning, we had a workshop with all of us on the team to talk about what brings us joy in our roles and what are some
Mhm.
areas that are missing. And I shared that I would actually love to understand more of the design philosophy and why they're making the choices that they are. So it is both being part of the design reviews with the team and asking my newbie questions of why did you pick that to go with this? And why are these materials important? And just hearing directly from these designers who have been doing this for decades. But
Mhm.
then also, I just love to learn. And so I have an online course on color theory that I'm
Uh-huh.
understanding space planning fundamentals and that sort of thing to decide, do I want to be a designer or not? I'm
Uh-huh.
taking on some projects with some friends to see if I can apply some of that knowledge is also part of it.
I love it. Was there
Yeah.
anything that surprised you about this field?
Yeah. What surprised me is just how deeply the designers need to understand both construction and the long-term function and use of materials or what is going on in a client's home to make the right recommendation. So it's not just I picked this fabric or this surface because it's pretty and it's a color you
Mhm.
like, it's durable. There's a trend of using indoor outdoor fabric on interior furniture sometimes. If you've
Mhm.
got kids like we do
Little
that are
kids.
spill on it. Yeah. Anyways, the amount of strategy that goes into what the designers are selecting and not just these are the right colors and the right mood.
Right.
It's been really interesting. And then also how many different vendors and partners they are coordinating with on a client's behalf. I'm always
Oh.
like, you guys, what you do adds so much value, especially if people
Uh,
are busy professionals, don't have the time,
yeah.
because knowing the measurements, knowing all of the details that these tradespeople are going to know, having someone just taking care of that for the client, that's so immensely valuable. I did
Oh,
not realize the 140 micro decisions that go into what seems like a simple project of updating a bathroom.
yes. So where do you see this going next? Where are you at?
Well, and that actually, one point I failed to mention earlier is part of this exploration is to determine would I actually want to become an interior designer? Do I
Mhm.
have the skills and would I enjoy that work? And I would say jury's still out because I'm
Yeah.
liking truly just being in the business
Mhm.
and being in the space. And there are opportunities where I can, see client presentations and be part of installs and things where I get to be like a quasi design person without actually, I'm leaving it to the experts in terms of coming up with the designs for clients. And I'm really working hard actually, because a big part of my personality is to be like, well, I'm going to do this for exactly 17 months and then I will decide what I'm going to do. And I'm finding that I really am enjoying it and trying not to force myself to decide one way or another and lean into if this is working for me and this is working for them, let's keep this good thing going. It's
Right.
really hard, but it's also a growth edge for me. So I'm actually kind of proud of myself that I'm just saying, we'll keep this going until it starts to not feel like it's working on either side.
Right. And I feel like you're so hyper aware of what's working for you and what's not that you'll know if something feels off and maybe I need to pivot. I just love how you got your foot in the door by approaching them with the ask of a shadow. I just
Mhm.
think how creative. I mean, it's so simple. And is it realistic for everyone? No. But how often would we think of doing that versus just looking for what's available and do I fit those qualifications?
Yeah, well, and it really was once I had that peek inside their business a little bit more where it became clear, oh, here's how I can add value. And it actually is really helpful to you. So I'm very grateful at how organically it came about. I was nervous going into that coffee conversation because I'm like, I don't even know for sure how to articulate what I want, or I don't have this 17-point plan that I'm working. I just
Right.
know this is something I've long wanted to do and I need to learn more. And they
Yes.
were open to that and they understood that. And I think that I don't want to use the term vulnerability, but that honesty resonated with them where they're like, great, okay, let's try it.
How has this change affected not only you, but also your family's life?
It's been, this is going to sound super fluffy, but I am so happy driving to work every day. Or even I have more space in the mornings. So we've got 3 kids and one of them is on the bus at 7:20 in the morning. The other doesn't get on till 9:06, right? So we've got these mornings that are just long. And I've been able to structure my schedule that I'm not working until 9:30. So I've got these really slow mornings that I don't know that I could ever go back to having to be somewhere by 7:45 or 8 o'clock and at my desk and ready to go. It's just been just so joyful. And there's a sense of ease and also inspiration through that coaching work. I realized that's what really matters to me. That's one of the key things, that one of my core values is being inspired. And so I love being in a space that's surrounded by inspiring things and seeing these designs. And then even though, again, I'm not designing a room or making the selections for wall coverings and fabrics and all these things, it makes me inspired on the nerdy side of things of, ooh, my Excel spreadsheet seems more exciting because I'm around all of this beautiful stuff. So I feel just so much more joyful. And I was actually thinking, I went to visit my sister. She lives in Texas. And I was thinking about how different it is to be on vacation away from work now versus in my corporate role, where in my corporate role, I still probably would have been checking email from time to time or getting Teams notifications, all of that. And there's just none of it. It's so,
Wow.
It's a lot less stress. So it's wonderful. And I think for our family, it's been good too. I mean, it's been an adjustment from a family role standpoint where I feel I am by default assuming I should pick up more of the responsibility around the house, where my husband, Chris, he doesn't expect that of me. We've always been pretty balanced in terms of how we share the load. And so I think I've had some learning to do there of being, well, since my schedule is a little bit more flexible, I should take on more. Again, it's all self-imposed. So we've had some good conversations about that where, again, he's chill out. Relax. Happy to still do the laundry or drive the kids, but it's been really good. And the kids have noticed. Actually, did I tell you this? Our oldest son, Eli, he said, this was shortly after my corporate role was eliminated. And he's like, hey, Mom, you know what'd be cool? You should go be an interior designer now. Eli knew that I wanted to be an interior designer. I had talked about it and I always loved it. And so while I didn't go into that right away, I was able to share with him when I started working at Fika. I was like, Eli, you helped to inspire me to do that. And so it's just really sweet. I have to gather.
Wow, I've got the chills. My first thought is how kids naturally say the truth.
Yeah.
Then I also think too, now that you've actually done that, what does that show your kids? And what a great role model that you're being for them. It's so cool.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming you would never go back then.
I mean, I guess I'll file it under never say never, but I'm just loving it. And it's working so well. I'm grateful that my career played out the way it did, meaning don't regret going into my corporate role and the years I spent there, because it gave us the financial means to be able to have this pivot, right? I still do some consulting in the wealth management space to a small degree because I'm not full-time working at Fika Design Group, but it's really selective. And that's also been an interesting process of stepping out of that industry. And I mean, it's not like I'm announcing it or anything, but that's been an interesting kind of letting go of that part of my identity a little bit, which is a process.
Do you mind sharing what's the layer that's the most difficult to let go?
I think I have irrational spinouts from time to time where if I don't stay in this industry, I could never go back and never make the same amount of money and da-da-da-da. And then by the same token, I'm okay with that. I'm loving what I'm doing so much that those are not the standards I'm measuring myself against anymore. And just continuing to remind myself of that, which I actually know very deeply. I can tell it's my head going, fear, fear, fear. What if, what
Yeah.
if, what if? And then it's my body and heart being like, you're good. Stay
Okay.
calm. Don't get sucked into that. So it's less and less, I think, as I was
Mhm.
starting to say, okay, I'm going to decline all of my clients in this space, kind of the old way that I was working. That was, here we go. But I was so
Yeah.
excited to try the new thing. And now I'm, okay, now I know this is so right that it's
Okay.
not really a second thought.
Switching gears to the practical side of this pivot, you're working part-time. You mentioned that your previous role helped you get to this point. What were the financial considerations you had to consider before making this career change?
Yeah. You and I had the conversation of, I have to let go of the feeling of privilege is the wrong term, but we
Mhm.
are a 2-income household. And
Yeah.
my husband works full time and has a career he's happy with, which I realize is not everybody's situation. So I just want
Mhm.
to acknowledge that, but just saying how we make it work, it really boils down to Chris, my husband, and I, we have very similar financial values and we always have. And we're kind of just practical savers.
Mhm.
We are not driving the latest cars, as you will know, right? Our home is the first home we ever bought, and we'll probably be here until we have a retirement home. And so our financial priorities have always been living below our means, I guess.
Mhm.
That coupled with the corporate role I was in for 13 plus years, we took on private equity backing and had a couple of private equity partner changes in the time that I was there. So that gave me the opportunity to kind of like publicly owned companies where you can have stock
Yep.
options. So you
Mhm.
can buy into some equity options. And so we made those investments when those opportunities came up at the time. And now that the payout on the equity is supplementing what would be normally be my salary
Mhm.
to help me have this time to navigate and figure out. But Chris and I have also had the conversation, even if we didn't have that, we'd be okay. We'd be able to make it work and still feel like we're doing the smart thing of preparing, saving for our kids' college and saving for
Mhm.
retirement and all those things. So, in terms of real financial terms, I'm working half as much. I'm
Mhm.
making less than half right now, just because in the industry that I've now moved into and the size of business, there's no way I could charge the same consulting rate, right? I see
Right.
the financials there. And for me, the trade off on the financial side for all of the happiness and joy and helping to contribute in building this business in such a fun and interesting way is totally
Right.
worth it.
Yes. I think that's incredible that you've been able to get yourself to this point and give yourself that space and that freedom to be able to follow this path. Every
Mhm.
family has a different philosophy and approach to this. So I'm curious to hear, what's your family's approach with paying for higher education?
Yeah. So Chris and I both, when we were in college, were paying our own way. We had some scholarships, but neither one of us came from means. I mean, I was one of 5 kids. My 5 college tuitions. My parents did not pay our way in that. And I actually found that rewarding in many ways, really valued and then focused on doing a good job in college and getting a good job after the fact, right? Because you got those bills to pay. And so as we've been saving in 529s for our kids, kind of our philosophy, and actually I'll credit this to my old boss. He and his wife, their kids are in college, and he had shared, we grappled with, we don't want to totally pay for things so that our kids don't appreciate it at all. And they have a philosophy where they're paying room and board and tuition for their kids. And then when their kids move off campus, they're paying tuition as long as their kids maintain a certain GPA. If they fall
Mhm.
below it, the entire bill goes to the kid. So Chris and I have talked about that, where I think that makes sense of if you're
Uh-huh.
performing, we'll pay whatever it looks for what we can afford when that time comes. But also, I do want then even in high school, we want our kids, like, if you're going to have a car, you have to have a job of some sort. There's this work
Mhm.
ethic, not a pay your dues thing, but I actually feel having that work ethic is important to us for
Right.
our kids and our family. And so we want them to
Agreed.
know how to earn their money and have those skills.
As we start to wrap up, what do you think are some of the strengths that you are carrying forward into what you're doing now?
Oh, I would say understanding the metrics and growth drivers in the business. So when I was in my marketing leadership role on the wealth management side, I was accountable for the P&L of our department, right? So what's our return on marketing investment for the programs we're running? Well, it's applying that same type of mindset just to the entire business profit and loss of, hey, how are we looking at where we have the most margin? Where are we most profitable? Where are we maybe leaking some profitability, and what do we need to do to remedy that? While also taking great care of our clients, right? And having this wonderful
Mm,
client experience. And so it's just been really fascinating to go in. And I also have always kind of had an analytical brain in terms of figuring out how to get data out of systems and run the pivot tables and do the analysis or use the different tools to create dashboards and metrics. And so that's been really fun of just really understanding the underlying drivers of the business. And then
yeah.
it's this nice complementary balance of, okay, here's the pure business view of what should be done. And then the designers are sharing, yeah, but here's the why from a design and client experience perspective. And how do we find
Mm,
that right mix of implementing the right changes?
right.
That was probably a longer answer than you wanted, but I think that's one of the key things. And then
Yeah.
the marketing side of things, of course, that's obviously been really thinking of in our messaging, who is it that we're speaking to and what's
Hmm.
valuable to them and what's in
Yeah.
it for them, and
Hmm.
trying to highlight that within all that we do.
I love that. And how we see ourselves is sometimes different than how others see us. And most of the time, we, especially women, undersell our strengths. So I want to share what the owners of Fika Design had to say about your strengths. So I
Yep.
heard back from Jennifer and Callie. And so what they shared is that Joanna's superpower is bringing clarity to complex situations. She has a
Ooh.
remarkable ability to turn ideas into action, balancing big picture thinking with a practical solution oriented approach. She brings enthusiasm and a genuine eagerness to learn everything that she does. And
Oh,
reading this and knowing you, I definitely see all these strengths in you. Just to add my 2 cents, I also see that you are such a practical builder of things and a visionary, not only from your previous career and also launching your consulting agency, but how you've been the architect in building the career and role that you want in the space that you want right now. It's incredible to just witness how you are putting all of the pieces together. It is absolutely inspiring knowing you and being your friend and watching how you're executing this. And you're having fun while you're doing it. So I echoed Jennifer and Callie's words. You are incredible, Joanna.
oh my gosh.
On that note, so just to lighten things up a little
Okay,
bit,
more tears.
just because we are not all career women, I have a
Mhm.
few quick questions for you, nothing heavy, just real life stuff.
Let's do it.
All right. So, one of my personal goals this next year, outside of figuring out what my second act is going to be,
Yeah,
is
just that.
is to expand our family recipe
Mm.
options with something that all of us love. So, my question to you, do you have a go-to family meal or recipe that everyone loves?
Yes. Well, and I mean, it's not actually my recipe. It's allrecipes.com or whatever.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a brunch
okay.
because I love a good brunch. There's this really good baked apple French toast casserole that I'm
Oh,
gluten free. You can make it gluten free. It's a hit. The kids love it. Adults
okay.
love it.
Okay.
It tastes delicious and makes delicious leftovers. So that's my go-to.
I'll have to get the
Yeah.
recipe from you.
Yeah.
Do your kids have chores? And is allowance tied to it?
Yes. We use the Greenlight app because we were trying to do it outside of having an app do it and failing miserably and not consistent on follow through. But the app really helps. So yes, they have
Okay.
chores and they get paid if they do them, and they don't get paid if they don't.
What are their chores?
Well, it varies for our two older boys who are 12 and 10. Our 5-year-old is not yet. He said he'll do chores next year when he's in kindergarten. But it's helping with the dishes, putting laundry away, and vacuuming the kitchen. The
Okay.
regular day-to-day stuff. And then sometimes
Yep.
we have special projects. They're always asking to get paid for extra stuff. And then sometimes I'm just, you're doing this because you're part of this family.
In terms of what inspires you, is there a mantra or a motto that you live by?
Gosh. I would say it's just what's meant for you won't miss you. And so just knowing that, and also credit to my friend Leah, who was the one who taught me that. But when I'm trying something new or wanting to explore something and just wondering, is this going to take me off the path or whatever? She's just, what's meant for you won't miss you. Just go.
Wow, I love it.
Kind of
Thanks for
similar to
sharing.
you're always in the right place at the right time, right? You're always in the right place at the right time. It's good.
Last question. In terms of wellness, is there one non-negotiable for your well-being?
Yeah, having time for myself in the morning, whether ideally
Okay.
it's an hour or 45 minutes, but sometimes it's
Mhm.
just 10 or 15 minutes. But I have to use that time to journal, meditate, move my body to yoga, ideally, or a strength training workout. But sometimes it's just going to stretch.
Yeah.
And that's just really, that sets me up for such a better day and helps me just get centered to kind of carry that forward into what's next.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Well, Joanna, thank you for this conversation and sharing your story. What stands out to me is how intentional and strategic you've been to build something that fits where you are right now in the field that you want to be in. Where can people find you if they want to follow your journey or learn more about Fika Design?
Yes. Well, Fika Design, you can follow us on Instagram, which is Fika, Fika_design_group. So Fika Design Group. I'm on LinkedIn, Joanna
Okay.
Ehresman. So please connect. Also, I think I'll link my Instagram handle and things to my bio here. Would be happy if anybody has questions or just wants to connect. I'm happy to be a resource to anyone. I'd
Thank
love
you
to.
again,
I'd love to.
Joanna. It's been great to
Oh,
have you on.
yes. Thank you for having me.
And to our listeners, if you're wondering if you can do something similar, I hope Joanna's story shows you that it doesn't have to be all or nothing starting from scratch. You can bring the skills that you already have to the table and build from there. And thank you for being here. If you liked this episode, then subscribe on your preferred podcast streaming platform and share this with someone else who can learn something from Joanna's story. And remember to explore on your own terms, because nothing changes if nothing changes. One of the takeaways from Joanna's story that I'm thinking about is that a career pivot may not necessarily be linear or time bound. So, what I mean by that is it may take me longer than my proclaimed 1 year to figure out my second act. And I guess I have to be okay with that because I can continue to build it as I go. That's my biggest takeaway, or one of my biggest takeaways from my conversation with Joanna. What I love about Joanna's story is how she didn't wait for the perfect answer to show up. She did the internal work to figure out what path she wanted to take next. And sometimes, isn't that the hardest part? Is just figuring out, what do I want to actually do next? And then once she had the answer, Joanna created and is creating the role that she wants in the field that she wants to be in. I think that's something a lot of us need to hear. We're waiting for permission or the perfect moment. And meanwhile, we could just start. And in fact, we are starting with listening to this conversation. If this story got you thinking, I'd love to continue it with you. Sign up for my email list on herintentionalreset.com to hear about the latest episodes, get behind the scenes access to guest career insights and resources, and join the forum where we keep the conversation going in between episodes. See you at herintentionalreset.com. And here's some bonus content.
And Molly, can I just say congrats on launching the show? And honestly, it's like these are important conversations that you're having. I think you're hitting on, I don't know, I don't think this is just a me thing. Like, this is such a relevant thing for women in our life stage. And the fact that you're
Yes.
having these conversations about, like, no, so really, how did you really do it? Like, what, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? I think that's it's so important and necessary. And I'm just so excited to see, like, to hear the other guests and their stories and see what else comes up. So
Yeah.
congrats.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I do want to have you on again because you mentioned that you started a podcast, and I do have to acknowledge that I never would have even considered doing this. I've never been, oh, this is on my vision board. But when I knew that I wanted to talk to other women about their careers, I just automatically had the thought in my head of, oh, and I'm going to podcast about it because I know someone that did a podcast, so I can do a podcast. It was one of those kind of representation matters where just knowing someone that did it, I was like, well, I can do it too. So thank you for being that visionary again, blazing that trail for me to be like, oh, real people can start a podcast.
Yes. And they don't die out of what other people think.
Out of fear and trepidation. So we will have to talk about that at a different episode. So what stuck with me, so you were like one of the first people that I told outside of my husband and my family that I got laid off. And I think we met less than a week after. And I told you, okay, I'm going to give myself a year and I'm going to call it my midlife gap year. And I'm going to figure out what my next career pivot is going to be. And I'm going to launch a podcast. What do you think? You're like, yes, I've been down that path. And I remember you saying, I also gave myself a year, but then basically in a very nice way, you're saying, we'll see what happens within the year. And by you acknowledging that and say that out loud to me, it already gave me permission in my mind to know that, all right, even though I give myself this timeline, it may not actually be in 12 months that I'm able to say definitively, this is my second act.
My life's purpose. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. So I definitely resonate with what you were saying about personality wise. You think, okay, I'm going to do this and this and this, and this is how you feel successful, or this is how you've always operated. But I also love you acknowledging, oh, it's not going to necessarily be accomplished in all 1 year.
And it was a hard lesson for me to learn because my immediate response is, well, then I didn't do something right. I had the plan and I was working the plan, and why didn't the plan work? And da 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 da. I mean, this whole thing has taught me to just lighten up a little bit, loosen up, trust. It'll be okay.
Yeah. And these are the bloopers. Okay. Okay. All right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So,
I love that.